Earlier this year, Coral Magazine interviewed 5 different filtration companies for an article that came out in this issue right here. This is the March-April edition of 2024, and I wanted to read to you the opener because it kind of sets the stage for what you're about to watch. With just a few weeks from inception to a print deadline, Coral editors Marc Levenson and Matt Pedersen set out on an audacious project. Interview 5 marine aquarium industry veterans with diverse insights into saltwater aquarium filtration. What follows is the result of over 10 hours of raw footage, nearly 109,000 spoken words, perhaps a few all-nighters, well over a century, maybe 2, of collective experience, and unprecedented candor from the leaders behind the iconic brands Life Reef, Bash Sea, MRC America, Reef Aquaria Design / Chemi-pure, and RK2 Systems. I hope you enjoy this first interview, and there's going to be more coming soon. We are here with Jeff Turner of Reef Aquaria Design, and he is going to talk to us about filtration. We've got a lot of questions, and Jeff has a lot of different companies, so he has a lot of knowledge. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yes, no problem.
I say us because
here.
There's another person hiding in the background.
Matt.
And that would be Matt. So
Hello.
We are here for all 3 of you. But for right now, Jeff, can you give us a little backstory? Like, how long have you been in the hobby? Did you have a reef tank at one point, or did you just become a company and got into reefing?
Oh, God. I had my first marine aquarium when I was 5. I'm 62 years old now, so that's 57 years. It just turned 62. Built my first glass aquarium at age 7 with glass and silicone with my dad. That was in 69. And I won Best in Show with the Florida Marine Aquarium Society at 9 years old in 1971.
Wow.
With my natural environment display from basically off Elliott Keys. It was all Atlantic corals, Atlantic live rock, little penicillus, algae, gorgonians, four-eyed butterfly, jewel dams like caught, Beau Gregory, Aurora grama, my brother caught in the Bahamas. So, I got history with marine aquariums forever. And have been doing it my whole life. Professionally, my first job, I worked at a bait shop. I worked in a restaurant for a summer. Mm-hmm. And then I was servicing aquariums at 16. And since then, I've never stopped.
Wow.
So I've been going since the beginning of, really the advent of the hobby. And originally, it was living aquariums before the Lacey Act, which was, I believe it was 72, maybe 74 was the Lacey Act, mm-hmm. which stopped us from collecting coral, basically coral off of South Florida. So things changed, and then the natural environment aquariums became bleached coral aquariums. And yes. They were, under gravel filters or reverse flow filter plates, jacuzzi filters. I go down a list of stuff.
Yeah.
To where we are now. I mean, this 2,000-gallon reef behind me in our lobby of the building has been now running about, I think it's about 3.5, 4 years. Mm-hmm. And it's all living coral. A big majority of it is aquaculture here in the building. Mm-hmm. And it's just a great piece to have in the building for when people come in, architects, builders, designers, owners.
Right.
And they get to see, or hobbyists coming in for a jellyfish aquarium or whatever, mm-hmm. they get to see a full-blown 2,000-gallon coral reef, and then they get to see the filtration system, the life support, and everything that supports the biology, chemistry, and all aspects of the aquarium. It's very robust, and it's a beautiful aquarium. As a matter of fact, I have some of Chad Callan's first yellow tangs that were bred at OI, nice. Going back from almost 5 years ago. And they're much bigger now. They still have a little lateral line. Everybody else in there doesn't. Mm-hmm. But that was, I think, a nutrition deficiency in the beginning with the yellow tanks. So really cool stuff. But that's a lot of the backscatter.
A 2,000-gallon tank, does that make it 16 feet long?
It's 16 by 54 front to back and 42 tall. So nice. It's a 1680 external dimensions. Yeah. And underneath, I have a 12-foot sump running lengthwise underneath. And then in the room next to it, there's another 400-gallon glass sump that glues together. So when we filled this, I put 1,940 gallons in off a VIP seawater truck. So I did use natural salt water, going through a really fine micron slowly. Mm-hmm. And then we got it running. But I needed to put 60 gallons of fresh water in to offset it. So that's how we know it is a hard 2,000 gallons operating.
Because you've measured
Because
every drop.
yeah, well, we did. When we put the water in, it's the only time you really can measure it. That's with displacement of the rock and everything.
Yeah.
So it is housing 2,000 gallons of salt water operating right now. And we really don't use NSW, natural salt water. We use the RODI out of the building. I use Tropic Marin on this particular reef aquarium.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Let me bring Matt on here now with us. Now that the fish have been fed and everything's good. Hello, Matt.
We got the drool over that beautiful tank behind you, Jeff.
They feed them at the end of the day. It's like 4 o'clock here in Florida. And that's one of the last things they're doing. Again, we're feeding the aquarium 2-3 times. We also have an auto feed system with liquid foods in there that we're feeding 5, 6, 7 times a day. I think we feed at night too for the corals.
With all that feeding, I feel like we should talk about filtration.
Yeah.
Why don't you start by telling us what is the system? I mean, you could design anything you wanted for this system. Tell us about the life support for the tank behind you.
Well, I designed out this big sump, and then I put some trays inside the master sump area, which is approximately 7 feet long, probably 36 inches front to back, and again, 42 height. So the 42 height is typical code for any water tank to make it safe, per se, so kids don't come up and go in and drown. So you got to have a railing height or a height of any open tank at 42 inches. That's code. So this one is at code. So it's a big 3/4 inch glass sump that I put PVC board on the front, white PVC board. And inside of it is a Twin Tech 10,000 calcium reactor. There's a 7i Deltec Black Edition skimmer with the Abyss motor on it. There is one fleece filter on here too. There's also a fluidized reactor, which I think is a 509. Typically, we might put GFO in there or Chemi-pure blue. A little bit of it once in a while.
Nice.
Not a lot, not too much carbon with such a big reef aquarium, but some to help with the clarity. There's also a 200-watt aqua ultraviolet sterilizer up there. We change that bulb every 6 months. And then there is a 1.5 ton Aqualogic chiller barrel, which is titanium, going to a split unit. The compressor is outside on the other side of the wall. We also have a 165 lower saltwater mixing tank, and then an elevated freshwater mixing tank that we drain and do water changes once a week. Typically, we'll do 165 on this aquarium, which is less than 10%, but still it's more than adequate to, I would say, help stabilize the buildup of organics and really keep the nitrates in check too. So, I try to keep a reef aquarium like this, stony coral with LPS. There are no zoanthus, no softies in it. Somewhere 10 to 15, 5 is great. You start getting to 20, we're backtracking, we're putting more water changes in there. But 10 to 15, I think, is acceptable because there's a lot of fish and they are getting fed, which is important.
Yeah,
fish need to eat, like us.
Are you running any sort of denitrification, or is there any other nutrient export happening besides just water changes?
The water changes and then the Chemi-pure, and that's it. I'm not using a nitrate denitrifying filter. We have sulfur denitrators operating on the 6000 in Atlanta. That's actually working really well. That aquarium has gotten so large. Geo's up there today. The corals are just growing like weeds, and the fish, of course, are much bigger. So, a normal day feeding there, you might end up putting a pound of food in the aquarium.
Yeah.
And how do you convert that? There is an algal filter on the front of this too that runs RDP. We've had Cato didn't do so well. Reverse daylight photosynthesis.
Got it.
Right. So it's running at night. And there's ulva, I think, in there right now. So we still put some ulva in there. We'll harvest that out. And that's nutrient export too. But I think the 10% water change, with a lot of experience in big reef aquariums running, continuously, and we have a plethora of them on the road. The 5,000 in Fort Lauderdale, same kind of situation. You get into a few years, you can start getting a little buildup of nitrates. And really, we're hedging that off with water changes. Mm-hmm. It gets technical. So when I get into, listen, the dogs are going crazy here too. When I get into a really big aquarium, right? So let's say we have 40 reefs that we're professionally servicing across the board right now down here in South Florida, the one in Atlanta as well. You say to yourself, so let's put denitrification on all of them. You know, let's put calcium reactors on all of them. Let's make all of them all of these things. And then you have 40 different things, including Apex systems or whatever systems you're using. Right. Now you have you got times 40 aquariums times 5 items that could fail. Now you have 200 items that you're always up in the air with.
Yes.
So you really have to, rely back on the aquarist that's in charge of the aquarium, the team in general, and then recognize that what are we going to do about this export of nutrients? We've done everything, vodka dose, you name it, anything you could think of. Yeah. The sulfur denitrators work real well. Mm-hmm. They still have to drip, whether it's a drip a second, 2 drips a second, 3 drips a second, depending on the size of the unit. And then, of course, that denitrification functions by testing the effluent coming outbound, just like a calcium reactor. You need to test the effluent on the outbound. You can test the water, but you need to make sure that you're getting what you need out of it. Yeah. This particular unit also has this 3-tiered calc stir that I made that is using 10.3 gallons of calc at night, administered from 7 p.m. till 6 a.m. So it's going 11 hours of 10.3 on a constant drip. Had so much water, so much volume in milliliters that it had to go on 2 different cycles on the Apex to achieve 10 gallons or right. 10.3. So that also helps, I think, really more so with phosphate control and pH elevation. Chris Meckley, of course, we're all everybody's kind of friends in different segments of the business. Yeah. And, Chris is a real fanatic, I'll call it, of pH. Yeah. And I have a tendency to agree with him. I really appreciate, trying to run an 8.3 at the low end and cap out at an 8.6. Even a few 2 months ago, I was running an 8.5 in here. I was getting really impressed. Mm-hmm. An 8.5 and 2,000 gallons of water with food and flow, and the level of CO2 even in the offices versus the warehouse. Mm-hmm. So that became an item to do. So we put a desiccant filter on the intake of a CO2 desiccant filter on the intake of the 7i Deltec protein skimmer. Yeah. So now we're stripping CO2 out too from the air in the building. It's fascinating when you get a meter out and you really look at what is your airspace. In you guys' house, especially up north, you might have an elevated CO2 level in your house. Oh, so absolutely. that affects your aquarium for sure. So, I think really the more you learn, the more you realize that there's more to learn. Yes. And it doesn't really stop. And I was thinking about it today. I was on the road over in Naples, one really significant 2,000-gallon cylinder and the largest home being built in the state of Florida right now, mm-hmm. with a remote filter room downstairs. And I was there. The house has been under construction for 4 years. We can't do the filtration downstairs until certain aspects of the permitting system is completed, which is happening now. And we expect to go full bore first 2 weeks of April to do all of the filtration downstairs, and then to tighten up upstairs on the cylinder. And, filtration is more than just the components. Filtration is also flow, patterns of flow, exchange of water through the sump, exchange of water in the body itself. And that particular cylinder, I bought a couple of motorized Asahi ball valves. Mm-hmm. So I've done this before at Red Bank Veterinary up in Red Bank, New Jersey years ago with Hayward ball valves. And those typically scored and the ball would eventually shear or the ball would never work. So nowadays the technology is better. It's Viton seals, or it's a different type of a ball valve, but the flow is going to go this way for 6 hours, right? And then the ball valves are going to motorize and it's going to go that way for 6 hours.
Yeah.
And the guys are like, what do you mean? I said, yeah, that's what I mean. And the surface return isn't not a 90 going out, it's a 45 going down.
Right.
So I'm going to flow the living you-know-what out of this circular thing with the circumference of the product, the tank itself, going like that. And then it takes about literally 10 minutes, even though the ball valve is switched, it takes 10 minutes for static movement.
Right.
And then it starts spinning the other way.
Right.
Now, you could do that for 6 hours, 1 hour, whatever, but, kind of, growing up on the ocean, the tides change every 6 hours. It's very normal, very normal. So that's how I'm going to really achieve massive flow in there. We have gotten away from closed loops mostly through penetrations in the bottom. It's not that we had cracked bottoms or something. It's just that it's another failure point. You get a 1,000-gallon reef tank. I have a 1,600-gallon reef aquarium in the 8th floor of a high-rise over Miami Beach. It's a lot of water. And you have penetrations in the bottom. You get a shaft seal leak or anything. Even though I have a floor drain, you're still dealing with a lot of water.
Yeah.
So even closed loops I used to do years ago, but we pretty much closed them out. We don't do them.
I have 3 parts for you. Who are the rad customers? I know. Well, and I even feel like, okay, so we're going to cut it here.
Yep.
Let's back up even further, Jeff, because we haven't really talked about the fact that I want to start by you explaining all the different companies that you are involved with, because it's a rather unique position that you're in. I would just a nickel tour each company, what it does.
Okay, so everything really goes back into the custom aquarium business. Originally, I had exotic aquaria back in 1980 when my father passed away in Thailand, and I was servicing aquariums under exotic aquaria. So I ran that for years up until 1997. So that was a solid 17 years straight building custom aquariums, servicing aquariums, and doing that. And eventually Live Rock shut down. That was a real hit to the profit line of the business. And I had an opportunity that came about, which was ORA. So I was approached by the main constituents up at Harbor Branch related to ORA at a trade show in Tampa. And they asked me, they looked at me and we talked about the big aquarium I had on display on wheels. And they said, and that was like a 400 Reef. It was beautiful, big Gorgonians, Atlantic stuff. And I was promoting the sales of the critters that we were selling and whatnot at that time. And they said, oh, well, you'd be the perfect guy to run this whole thing with ORA. And I'm like, maybe I'll end up doing that. So I ended up merging my company with ORA, the whole thing, the whole shit and caboodle. Can I say that? I just did. So we merged the whole thing in, and then I went still building some aquariums, did the trade shows, promoted responsible aquaculture, grew larger clownfish, which was really the big key. People were all selling things the size of my thumbnail and thinking the store could make money. They couldn't make money at that. Mm-hmm. So, it went from zero to hero in 2 years, and I was selling literally $2 million of fish a year. Wow. In 2 years. Nobody's done that in the history of the world, of marine ornamental tropicals. So that worked out for quite some time. I stayed on the board for 5 or 6 years with ORA and kept still doing what I do, custom aquarium services. I built aquariums, at Petco's corporate headquarters. I did Central Gardens, all theirs. I did all glass aquariums. I did all the trade shows for all glass for ORA as well for years. So I had a lot of experience with that. My dad started the Florida Marine Aquarium Society, Dick Boyd, Bob Strawn, back in 55. My father was the second president in 57 and then president again in 65. Dick Boyd had been along since the very beginning. So I knew Dick Boyd for years. Since I was born, basically, I was a kid. They were friends, my dad and Dick. And that whole South Florida aquarium scene, which developed here because we caught all of our own fish and put them in our aquariums. Mm-hmm. So really the beginning of the marine ornamental aquarium keeping really was more so towards the 50s in America. It also was in San Diego because people dove and caught down there. Obviously, New York had some because they were importing fish. I mean, we all remember, Bob Fenner so well, but he used to be able to give you a whole history of the aquarium industry in San Diego even. So that rolls us into ORA. And then, I started Reef Aquaria Design back in 2000. That now is running, continuously now for 24 years.
Right.
And I had an opportunity 13, almost 14 years ago, looking at Chemi-pure. Mr. Boyd had died. I was next door to him back in 91. Mrs. Boyd passed away about 14 years ago. I knew the boys and struck a deal to buy Chemi-pure. So I bought Boyd Enterprises, or the assets of Boyd Enterprises at that time as well, and took what was a family-operated company, which still is. I mean, it still has the same name on the label. You can see it. It says Boyd Enterprises right there.
Yeah.
And we didn't change it to Turner Enterprises because it never was Turner Enterprises. And I think Dick Boyd would really appreciate the fact that that's what we did, because he was the inventor of Chemi-pure. And Chemi-pure is really the #1 filtration media product in this hemisphere, has been for many years. I literally have an ad upstairs from 1961 in TFH showing Chemi-pure for sale. And the first article in 59, and then another article in 1960, both in TFH, describing what Dick Boyd discovered with utilizing mixed bed resins and carbon medias to create this very interesting, product, which we sell, hundreds of thousands of units a year. So that is the #1 filtration media brand in the country. ChemiClean also is a product there, and Vitachem. Those are two very well-known and respected products. So that's the Chemi-pure side of things. And then at Global Pet, probably in 2000, and I got to think about this, probably 2003, I met Alex Andon from Jellyfish Art. He was there. He won Best New Product with his little Chrysal air-driven tank at Global Pet. And he said, well, how do you keep these jellyfish alive for so long and build these big, large jellyfish displays, which I do at Stake 954 as a 2,000 gallon, same size as this, 16, almost 20 feet long, that one. And we got talking. I went to San Francisco, met with him. He came here. We met. We talked about maybe me taking over the East Coast and helping grow jellyfish and do it. Then he asked me, well, would you be interested in buying the company? I said, well, sure. What do you want? So I ended up buying Jellyfish Art too. And then decided that, it was too many things for me to do. So I asked my son, Joey, in college, his last year in college, would you, be interested in, as you finish your year in college, to come back and run this company, Jellyfish Art? And he says, yeah, I would do that. So I made him an offer he couldn't refuse. Well, he is my son.
That's why he can't refuse.
Right. And then he came back, and then we launched the Jelly Cylinder Nano on Kickstarter right before the Christmas season in November, probably end of October on Kickstarter. And then we went Indiegogo, and that was still to this minute the #1 aquarium product ever sold on Kickstarter. We sold $888,000 worth of product in about 3.5 months, maybe 4 months. It was a remarkable success. And still to this minute, still is. We're still selling plenty of Jellyfish Art aquariums and shipping jellyfish all over the country. I think even today, I know for sure we shipped to the Georgia Aquarium. They had asked for some. We sent some to Frost Science last week. So we sell to public aquariums, private aquariums across the country, to service professionals across the country, and then to consumers as well with Jellyfish Art. So that gives you some of the scatter of all those companies. I actually have another company that is the boat. I have my commercial marine life license on there. I do catch some jellyfish and tropicals here and there, mainly starfish, gorgonians, snails, that kind of stuff. Maybe some, red lake hermits, things like that when I'm out diving, because we still love to dive. But the boat is its own company. And then when you look at Reef Aquaria Design now, I would venture to say in a very positive, assured manner that we have the most significant portfolio of living coral reef and jellyfish aquariums in North America, and that we have truly the number one high-end reef and jellyfish service route in the country. I say that with a lot of confidence because I don't know anybody. I mean, Mike Senski's got a lot of aquariums, Dave Reagan in San Diego. There's people around that have some. Kurt Harrington up north, but I mean, I can't think Roger DeGregory in Dallas. I mean, there's a lot of guys out there, but nobody that has 50 reefs and jellyfish. At this point, I think the route is 60 something aquariums. Mm-hmm. And 2 over 5,000 gallon reefs, 3 jellyfish displays that are over 2,000 gallons. Mm-hmm. Some of them I can't take photos of because they're confidential. Mm-hmm. But that service route is fascinating. And, one day when we all have the time to get together down here and you guys come down, there's not going to probably be another MACNA in South Florida. But one day you'll come down and we'll go take a tour. Mm-hmm. And get you into some of these places. And I'm just as flabbergasted as you guys are to pinch myself and say, wow, just how fantastic that one is. And then we go to the next one and you say, oh, wow, look at that one. Mm-hmm. And part of my reality into this year, coming into the end of February, I have our professional videographer, drone photographer. We're going to go out and try to shoot. This is an ambitious idea, but 29 projects that I haven't photographed in the last 4.5 years. That's a lot of projects and some really big ones that are intense. So that part, still this second, is the most engaging aspect of really what I do. Chemi-pure is great. The products company, Jellyfish company is great. The building is its own thing, but the services, by God, is very involved, very intense. Yeah. And it all goes back into the structure that you build, the strength and really intense filtration systems. And then what automation you can put in, mm-hmm. though I'm not running everything on an Apex or on a PL I'm gonna system.
Jump in here and cut you off for a second.
Thank you.
And say,
that was a lot of shit.
Okay, so I before we talk, I've got this question I've been dying to ask, and you were about to speak to it. But before we begin, I want you to just, I know you have a relationship with Deltec, the filtration company as well. Could you speak to that before we move forward?
Well, all of that rolls back into, God, this goes way back in. Mike Paletta at one time said to me, you'd be the perfect guy to distribute Deltec. And Dave, of course, the king of aquariums in England, Saxby, mm-hmm. Had some interest in that too with Deltec, with Wolfgang, who was the originator of Deltec. And I had already been buying Deltec for years from Germany and importing it to America. I used it at the Smithsonian, 15 years ago. I used it at several projects 20 years ago and even maybe 25 years ago. Wow. So I got snookered into becoming the distributor of Deltec way back when with too many hands in the pot. And that kind of imploded upon itself a long time ago. Another guy got involved, Doug Thompson. He did it for a period of time and things kind of fell apart again. So when I got into the new building, I said to Jan Nels, who bought it from Wolfgang, that, I'd be interested in housing and holding and selling it. These were the biggest buyer in North America of Deltec products. So it only made sense. So we have a plethora of Deltec products in the back. We have inventory that we ship out on a daily basis to consumers all across the country, a few stores. But I think, as you guys know, too, some of the European products, maybe even whether it's Tunzi or whether it's Diesmann or other German products through time, other than really Tropic Marin, is really some of it is a consumer direct product. It isn't really, it's going into 100 fish stores across North America. That really doesn't happen as much, right. Even though you guys have been around a long time too. There's others that are out there, but Deltec still is a premium brand, has a great product line. And I love using it because the projects are different, right? So I have a 500 reef or 700 jellyfish or a 5,000 reef or 2,000 jellyfish. We design our own systems, our own sumps, and we can take and put the pieces of equipment that we need that are going to fit within that project mm-hmm. for that project and work. All right. So to me, it's exciting.
So Jeff, What is your philosophy of filtration? What is what does that successful filtration look like to you? And you brought up something earlier in our conversation that really you have a very distinct need to avoid failure.
Right.
So
we're not building failures.
What does a rad filtration system look like? How is it conceptualized and put together? How might it be different from what I would just do on my own at home?
Right. Well, I'll give you a good backscatter. So, Toby Nias was here recently with Alex Groth from Abiz, and we went and looked at a few aquariums together. And Alex kind of brought that forward. He said, "Hey, Jeff, it appears to us that your projects are pretty much similar. You're going to build, a really robust filtration system to support the biology of this aquarium for the long haul." And it's just, logical for me. I look at it and say to myself, okay, so even this aquarium, this is a 20-year project. This is not, I'm not building for 5 years and taking it out or selling it to somebody. It's here. It's not leaving the building. If you want it, we're going to build you a new one. So the whole aspect of filtration to me is spatial awareness, under the stand, remote rooms, above the tank, above the aquarium, side rooms. What space do we have available? What space can we get from the client? What space can we steal? Whatever we have to do, we need space. And so if I get a bigger space, it doesn't cost a lot more money to build a bigger sump. So that 2000 I was at in Naples today, I designed out a poly sump, 500 gallons of capacity for a 2,000 gallon aquarium. So 25% of volume. So in an ideal world, I could build it bigger, but again, I don't have enough space. But still, to get a 500 gallon sump that's going to operate 420 gallons or 400, I think it was like 410 gallons. I can do a water change and take 300 out and put 300 in without stopping anything. Yeah. And then even as we keep developing sumps, which on these big projects, I'll go ahead and spend the money and build a custom poly sump, which is really, durable. That's going to be here forever. And I have numerous poly sumps around. Usually I use somebody not in the aquarium industry to fabricate the poly sump. We have down here people that build, fuel tanks for vessels, different tanks for vessels. So I found a guy, there's a couple of them down here that are really good at welding poly for potable water for a vessel. So I'll design the sump, give him it. Joe will put it in CAD. I can put it in, on pen and paper, and he'll just do it right away. So it all goes back into spatial awareness. So we got as big a sump that we can fit. You have doors that are restrictions. You have frames that are restrictions. You have to still figure out how to get the skimmer cup out and all the equipment in and out. So it all starts back at the sump and the volume of the project. And you go down the list. Filtration is not just a pump, a filter, a protein skimmer, a fleece filter, or floss, or whatever you're going to use. Chemical filtration, additions, and all that. It's ventilation. Okay, it's temperature control. It's clean air, fresh air exchange. At the W Hotel, I have this large jellyfish aquarium we installed. The filtration is in the garage where they park cars downstairs. So when I looked at that, I'm like, and I've done this numerous times, I ran a spare line just for the air intake for the protein skimmers that goes in under the cabinet in the restaurant. So I'm pulling air from the air in the restaurant, not in the parking garage with vents on the door, because I thought to myself, well, I'm going to get car exhaust into this room. So, that's, again, forward thinking. Hey, Ryan. So that's forward thinking. And a lot of what we do, or what I do, and what we train our team and the whole teams. I mean, Gio's learned a lot in 13 years with us. Joe's learned a lot too. And now he's drafting these designs. Well, again, I'll put it on a piece of paper, scratch it up, and then we'll go and put it in SolidWorks. Probably is what he's using mostly. It's just easier than rolling into CAD, not necessary. And we'll start mapping out the whole thing. This is a great one. This 2,000 gallon, I drew by hand on paper, including the sumps and everything. just because it's internal. I don't have to have some massive plan that I'm submitting to a contractor, builder, designer, and owner to sign off on. So when we do it internal, I just draft it and we go. We just build. But that is a big cornerstone. Temperature control, obviously RODI, salinity control, using typically a Chemi-pure liquid level controller with a mechanical valve after, or taking and utilizing calc-washer metered in on the apex, something for evaporation depending on what type of aquarium. So we're automating those things. I'm a real fan of Aqualogic for years with the chillers that we use, a lot of split units on the big stuff. I have a lot of radions over a lot of aquariums, a tremendous amount of those on the reefs. That's filtration too. I have MP60s, MP40s. We have gyres. We have flow cannons. There's a flow cannon on this big 2000, which is unbelievable. Once I got it up and running, it was like, holy, I could put 4 or 8 of those in the back of my boat. We might do 5 miles an hour. but it's pretty cool because there's too much drag on the boat. But that propeller pump is something else. And again, it comes down to expenses. So you have to really, I wrote about that a little bit recently. You have to really recognize where we are. I'm in South Florida, and the market is a lot different than most of the country. People come to Florida because of the ocean, the sun, the warmth. You guys are up in Texas today and Minnesota, and it's a lot colder than it is here in January.
Yes.
So people come down here, they love the ocean. So if they want an aquarium, 90% of the time, 95%, they want a saltwater aquarium. They come into the building, they see a big reef, they see a beautiful jellyfish tank. I have a soft coral over here now. I have another one in my office. Jolene has one. We have a lot of aquariums here. We have aquaculture systems in the back, jellyfish systems in the back. By the time they walk through here, they're like, holy moly, this is fantastic. So we wanted stony coral reef, a soft coral. It's really interesting. People who've never had aquariums, they come in and they see these flowing things in the soft coral, green star polyps and sinularias and gorgonians and mushrooms. They're like, wow, that's so beautiful. I'm looking at the stony coral tank and I'm like, oh, this is so great. But they want a soft coral tank. So we built them a soft coral aquarium, which again, from a maintenance standpoint, I believe we would all agree is probably a little easier, certainly. And that kind of gives us a lot of that background. Obviously, we're going to use Chemi-pure because, well, A, we own the company. B, this is a great story. I have used Chemi-pure in aquariums since I was 7 years old. So that is a real fact. And when I had the opportunity to buy the company, I'm like, oh, yeah, well, I've been using the product forever. So, as it is, you guys would know in selling or in business, I mean, if you believe in the product, it's way easier than to sell something that I don't believe in.
Right.
So we believe in the product. So that's just like Deltec. It's easy. I mean, we use it all the time. Not to say there isn't other equipment that's good. It's just that, that's how we've done it. So we keep doing what works. That's another thing really important to figure out. We do what works. Very important. Because if you're caring for it, you built it, you're going to care for it. If it doesn't work, how do you tell that to the client? Oh, I built you a crappy system. Not possible. You're not going to do that.
Let me rewind this a little bit because you said something way early on in this interview that I thought was really interesting, but you didn't really address it in the question Matt asked you about philosophy. That you said, we could literally puzzle together these 9 components and give it to every client, and we'd have 40 times 9. Now we have to keep track of whatever that math is, 380 issues. But I feel like your philosophy, and this is where I need you to tell us what you think. I feel like you're saying this system only needs these 5 items, but this system definitely needs these 19 items. Correct. Because of the livestock. And
it's a reef. So we all go back a long time with reef aquariums, and Lambert DeHaan's systems from Andy Ehas going from Tampa, way back when. I mean, the spiral spun filter that John Burleson was selling was as a byproduct of what was being built in Germany years ago. And those products coming in and those aquariums, I remember Dick Boyd had one in his office, one of the first two in North America. And that was I remember it was a living coral system or living reef system. And it was just a, spray bar over some,
Yes.
floss and a black media thing. And, then we got to bare bottoms eventually. Now we're back to bare bottoms again. So, those philosophies involved with Reef, I think the core philosophy is calcium, alkalinity, magnesium balance, of course, salinity. That has to be automated. And once you get good at automating it, the rest is pretty straight up to keep an equilibrium from really the first month forward forever. That's important.
Okay.
Temperature, skimming, micron filtration, lighting, auto feeds, very important. 2, protein skimming, calcium reactors. That's really why the 9 things on a reef aquarium versus what I would put on a jellyfish aquarium. Certainly a UV filter is on either one of them. But a jellyfish aquarium that I'm looking at now, I might use a scrubber of some sort, whether it's a Deltec, Cato reactor, or whether I use a clear water scrubber or something else to help elevate absorption of organics, because you're feeding a jellyfish aquarium several times a day too. So you're exporting organics. And then ultimately water changes still. Yeah. We all know Jobert from years ago, and we do believe that you can run a reef without a lot of water changes. But when we have a client, they want fish too. So we have to feed. Yeah. So you're not, unless I'm there 7 days or we are there 5 days a week, how do you think you're going to balance it when you're only there? And I said this to the team the other day. If you're servicing, let's say that 5,000 in Fort Lauderdale, we service it Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, all the time. Never stops. So we have eyes on it. That gives us probably 8 hours a week. We're there on site. So it gives us a lot of good time. So some accounts, though, you're there twice a week or once a week. Now you're in a whole nother ball game of management. You can pick up your phone and pull up your Apex and start modifying things that are going on. That's easy. Not that easy, but still, if you have 47 of them out there, what do you do? Yes. So that's where the whole thing comes up. And part of what we continue to do now is strive to create, our professional environment here with our team. We have some great players that are here for a long time. And that core group, and this is really great for you guys to really think about, the philosophy of the team as a unified group is just as important as either one of ours personal expertise. So when we bring a new person in, typically guys, what do they follow? Oh, I'm a good aquarist. I know what to do. Well, here's what the company does. Yeah. And that's kind of the direction I'm going in a really big way now. We've really solidified our checklist. We have everything electronic. We are really working hard at refining that, even what goes in this big aquarium here or the soft coral aquarium over there. And Aptasias is not one of the things that goes in there. Yeah. But, I saw a coral the other day with 2 Aptasias on it, so we took it back out. And, everybody kind of has a different philosophy. So I'm now working backwards to go forwards and continuing to refine that. Even the list of fish that we have in the building at all times and the list of fish that even goes into those aquariums. At one time, I had an aquarist 2 years ago order these Japanese tilefish to put into a big reef aquarium, like 5,000 gallons. I'm like, we have gravel and it's about that deep, like 1.5 inches. That tilefish is not going to make it. Why did we buy it? So that kind of put us back in reverse again. Mm-hmm. And that fish is off the list. We don't buy it anymore. Yeah. So that goes into new team members. And, every team member has their experiences, or they have less experience, or they've never taken care of a 1,000-gallon reef aquarium in their life. Right. Now what do we do? So we've really are refining that down. So now we have a list. So when a client comes in, oh, I want that fish. We literally had last week, a client up in Jupiter, super nice people, renovated the tank. Somebody else built it. Was just horrific. The box itself was okay. The stand was okay. We tore everything else out and did it. And they had spent a lot of good money. And on his list, he sent us last week, Queen Angel, Blue Face Angel, down this whole list, even though it's a soft coral reef tank. Right. And it went down the list of all these things you can't put in there. And that was a classic. We had not sent them the list in advance.
Right.
So they were asking for these things that were so beautiful. Yeah. Well, the answer was no. Yeah. And you hate to tell people no, but if you show up foremost with this list of, I'm going to say maybe it's 80 or 90 fish that would be acceptable for this soft coral aquarium. You guys have seen it in other people's aquarium, a majestic angel, or maybe it's a scribbled angel or something in somebody's coral reef tank. And you're thinking, why the hell is that thing in there?
Yeah.
So we can't do that in a professional service route. If you alone at your house, you want to do that, go right ahead. But not in a professional realm, because that damn thing goes in there and starts, eating the Jurassic clam or picking on the corals. So that also is part of the filtration. Think about that, right? The what animals are going to live there? What are they producing or consuming? It's all consumers or producers. What are they providing to the box? We'll call it. I love gorgonians. We're in Florida, so we end up putting great gorgonians. And this aquarium doesn't have any behind me, but the soft coral aquarium, I can see one up there at the top, really spinning. They do super well too. So hopefully that answers your question.
So it leads into another set of questions. And this I can ask a little differently, knowing your long history, having literally probably lived through every phase of the marine aquarium hobby. And I'm going to go to two different places here. I want you to, you mentioned something and you kind of glossed over it a while back, and I think I know what you were talking about. So I'm going to start with this one. What are your thoughts on the wet-dry filter? Is their reputation as a nitrate factory deserved? I'm going to throw two bonus ones on for you, which is, did you ever use them in a professional capacity? And then it's going to lead into my fourth. So I'm going to leave you with those three. Let's start there.
Okay, so wet-dry filtration basically is kind of a glorified ammonia tower. Though an ammonia tower, you're forcing air in and up and through the chamber of water falling down. That's more of what I would call a degassing unit. Two, wet-dry filters, I have biomedia typically on a jellyfish aquarium. On a reef aquarium, all I'm really using is, what do they call it, Aquamat, which is like a koi product, the blue mesh or the green mesh or the black mesh. That's a product that I think even, not Stephen Tanner sells, but we buy it, I think, through somebody else in California. But wet-dry filters, have their place really in a fish tank, I think, but not really in a reef aquarium. Just like a rapid sand filter. I call a rapid sand filter an ODU. And an ODU is an oxygen deprivation unit. Absolutely, unequivocally, they drive pH down because you're compacting organic matter that's converting right on the spot down to ammonia and nitrate. It's nitrate producing. So I try to get away from those things and rely on, the rock, the stone. I mean, you guys know I've been putting keystone on the back of aquariums for years. This one is filled with keystone on the back. That becomes live rock. So it's another biological surface. So wet-dry filters, great for a beginning hobbyist with a fish tank. Certainly applicable, like a Chaldees B filter for a freshwater aquarium. But for marine aquariums, we don't really use them anymore. Sure. I don't really believe it's necessary. Next question. The second phase of that question.
You said it already, like the differences between a fish only versus a reef aquarium or a fish only with some sort of rock work. I'm guessing at this point that you are not probably maintaining a lot of systems that are the commercial, that what I think of as the classic commercial install with the inserts style of fish tank. That's really, I don't get the impression that that's really what you're doing at this point.
We have apps. Well, I'll say this in a nice fashion. We have zero.
Okay.
It's either living or living. Even though sure a fish tank is living, and somebody wants to have a fowler, we'll do a really nice fowler, and still battle with some of the angels or fish, picking on leather corals over time, or sinularias or mushrooms. That rogue fish is going to go out and start eating those things. But at the same time, we're using a lot of aquaculture products, so I'm not so concerned about the green star polyp getting eaten by somebody. I think it's more pest related than fish related. And again, being like that big 1,600 that we have on the 8th floor, we're there Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So we can give them a little more bulk food to keep those fish more satiated.
Yeah.
The issue comes down is when the fish starts getting hungry, or they just have nothing to do. They want to go pick on things. Yeah. So a lot of that, and that's one thing I did learn. You'll love this one. I'm going to give credit where credit's due. Dave Saxby had an automated feeder in a little cooler at his aquarium that I saw 20 years ago. And it was just a little refrigerator. He'd have his house man or house person put it in a little food in the morning, and then they put a little feeder, pickup for a peristaltic pump or something, and let it into the tank. And it was a brilliant idea. And he had a massive amount of fish in that aquarium years ago with an unlimited budget. So that helps a lot too. When you have an unlimited budget, you can do whatever you want. You're your own hobbyist. And I mean, really I would call him one of the preeminent aquarists in the world too. No question about it. But it isn't like that in a professional realm like we have. We care for our clients' aquariums. 95% of our owners are owners. They're not hobbyists. Yeah. So that too is a different perspective.
Sure.
We sell a lot of this to consumers and Deltec and Jellyfish, but the rad business is all owners or public locations. Yeah. So we are paid for our professional services to do a great job, and we do. Really, really cool.
So Mark, Jeff, should we talk about Chemi-pure and chemical filtration?
We Where can, do you want to start? If you'd like to.
Yeah, no, listen, let's definitely talk about that, because we've already gotten some basics when it comes to equipment, but there are numerous chemicals that can be used to either filter or to improve the filtration of an aquarium.
Correct.
And you sell quite a few different types. So you could go into Chemi-pure blue, you can go into sulfur, you can go into GFO, or like Rophos, which is Deltec, I guess. And
so I'll cover that really good. So Chemi-pure originally was developed by Dick Boyd, literally in California in 1959. And what he discovered way back when was mixing really high grade, typically lignite carbon with different varieties of resins, which are ion exchange resins. How would I say this? It kind of like electrified the water. It basically amped up the strength of the carbon into absorption and gave positive charges into the salt water itself. So he discovered something that really hadn't been done before. However, we can go back into water filtration systems. You go to a water filtration plant, they may be using GFO to absorb phosphates. They're going to be using ion exchange resins and some of the things that absorb arsenic out of solution, out of groundwater. And they're going to use different grades of carbon, again, to remove tannins or other things out of water treatment plants. And Chemi-pure just became just a great product. So when we bought it 13 plus years ago now, I evaluated. We were using carbon that was domestic lignite carbon. I'm going to say close to 40 years. It had already been used. And the warehouse I took over was, just certain areas of it were black from the fine dust that was in that carbon.
Sure.
And I can remember as a kid, taking the carbon bag and, the Chemi-pure out of the bottle and taking it to the sink and rinsing it out. And it was black, and I black carbon all over. And I can remember Julian saying, oh, well, the carbon dust is good. That's also part of the, it's smaller and it's going to absorb even more. But, the person's first impression when they rinsed it was, oh, it's dirty. Yeah. It's not dirt. It's carbon dust. And lignite carbon has that tendency to be very soft. So I did some research. I went to WEFTech, believe it or not, in Chicago, probably 12 years ago. Looked at, there's so many people in the carbon industry worldwide. It's a commodity. Carbon worldwide is a commodity used in distillation of liquors and used in water treatment and used in so many things. Aquariums. The aquarium market is minute compared to the worldwide market use of carbon. It's used for the absorption of toxics and flues in power plants. It's used in so many things. Carbon black, they call that. And I went exploring more. Certainly I had used German 08 millimeter carbon through the years and cracked a deal to change the carbon permanently forever to 08 millimeter pelletized extruded carbon, steam activated lignite carbon. And I did that probably full bore, I'm going to say almost 7 years ago, and never looked back. So you can open up a new Chemi-pure like I got right here that's never been opened before, and you can get it in the bottle, and it's clean. The cap's clean. The top of the lid is clean.
Yeah.
And when a new consumer gets into, and that was the whole idea at that time, though it's more expensive, it has higher absorption capacity than the old carbon we were using. It's clean. So the new consumer takes it out and says, oh, wow, it's working. This stuff works like a dream on a cichlid aquarium. It's unbelievable what it does to cichlids.
Do you have to rinse it at all, or is it just no rinse?
Technically, you don't. We still advise people to do. It says it right on the bottle. Rinse it for a couple minutes in clean running water. People call it, oh, we can't use city water, can we? Yeah, right. Use city water. You're not really doing much to it. But even the resins that are in here are completely different than what was originally used in Chemi-pure. So we did a lot of research, and the great news is that we have a lot of aquariums that we can do factual research on. We're not like, sitting in a lab looking at it. We're using it real time on a big aquarium. So I used the blue about a year and a half. We really studied the resins and everything and how it affected the pH and everything in the water. And likewise with the green, which is for planted aquariums. It doesn't really affect the pH. The resins that are there are different, but you go do a little bit of research and you're going to find hundreds. And I can't tell you if there's thousands, but there's hundreds and hundreds of patents on different types of resins from different countries all around the world. Some are very expensive, like the phosphate absorbing stuff resin that we use in the Chemi-pure blue, really strong. And a lot of those things are built for products to absorb arsenic in groundwater to EPA standards. So you get looking at it extensively like we did for quite a while, and I learned a lot. So we developed the Chemi-pure blue, launched that, and it's fascinating. It did super well. It's done fantastic, and did not, the proper term is bastardize any of the original Chemi-pure sales. We're still selling as much Chemi-pure original as we were. We're just selling blue too, and green too, and then Elite. There's a lot of people that love Elite because that has GFO in it. And, as we all know, GFO also is the same thing. You take it to the sink, you rinse it, it's brown. Well, you're not getting out of the brown that comes out of it. People say it's dirty. Well, it's not dirty. It's the same stuff. So I don't have pelletized extruded GFO yet, but that might work one day too, if you think about it. I think perception from a consumer is one thing, but again, the quality of the product is there. It standed the test of time, and Chemi-pure is an incredible brand. It's a legacy brand. It has been traded in the market in North America now for 64 years, longer than me.
Wow.
I was born in
Jeff,
62. It was born in 59.
That bag you took a bag out of a jar.
Yeah.
It's got all the stuff in it. Do you put those bags in that 2,000-gallon Reef behind you, or do you take the contents and put it in a reactor so water flows through it?
No, you can do that. But the thing with the bag, this is really interesting. So this bag, I don't remember the microns of it, but it's really thin, so nothing comes out of it. So if you put that into a reactor, you're going to clog that up right away. You can put it loose into the reactor, but then, the sponge has a much higher, larger micron. Right. So some of it might pass through. Okay. So it works in a passive way. You don't have to force water through it. It can work passively. So typically I'm going to put in an area of the sump far away from the pumps that there's some flow going through. And that's it. And usually, we've even, because it's available here for any service tech to get a hold of, I had a couple guys like, oh, we should change it every month. We have it. No, don't change it every month. That's not what you do. That was
my next question. So if you take that bag and you put it in the sump, well, forget the stripping part. Let's just talk about just the use of the product. If you take that and you put it in the sump, after a while, a bacterial film grows over the mesh. Now, probably it's not absorbing it. It's not even getting water through it because there's like a force field on the fabric. Do you have to shake it off, rinse it?
That's why I put it in. I think that's why I put it in an active area flow. Okay. And really, bacteria growing on the bag, I don't see that to be the concern. Okay. Unless it's in a corner somewhere where there's no flow. Okay. There's a lot of flow in most sumps. Mm-hmm. So you're getting passive. Now, I have it on the soft coral tank on an uplift. So I'll build a system where the water will go through and up and then into another baffle. And in that grid here, it's going like this. The water's coming up, so it's fluidizing almost, but it's still in the bag. Okay. That works super well too. Right. And it always keeps it clean. But we recommend people, even on the instructions here, every 2 to 4 months. Okay. We only, on this 1,600 gallons, I have 2 of the Chemi-pure Blue Grandes, which is enough for 800 gallons. Yeah. And I think a lot of that has to do with it is only stony corals, and LPS, which is still a stony coral. And you don't want to take too much out. You still need a little bit of nitrate, right? Sure. We need a little bit of phosphate. We need some organics. We need food going in. So you don't want to strip the phosphates down to zero. You got to have organics and you got to have some food for the aquarium. But if we look down the length of it right now, it's gin clear. Yeah. The same thing happens with a good brand new UV sterilizer bulb. I have 200 watts in here. You throw that on here and a brand new bulb, and 6 days from now, it's crystal clear down the length. But so there's the Chemi-pure.
And Chemi-pure is an all-in-one chemical solution.
Yeah, filtration media product is what it really is. Chemi-Clean is another really tremendous product that's been around since the beginning of time too, with Dick Boyd. Yeah. John Nobles, believe it or not, I know the guy's name who built it in the beginning. He was a chemist, a really smart guy. He actually originally was selling it to Dick Boyd. Dick Boyd eventually bought the product and what it is years ago. And it's a proprietary mixed product that helps to alleviate stains caused by cyanobacteria. Mm-hmm. We can't say the 4-letter word that starts with a K and ends with an L. That's not proper. It can't say that on the label, but it certainly removes the stains. And it does a great job with that. But at the same time, you guys are laughing because I have to be careful.
That is hilarious. The stains.
It is hilarious. The stains. But, cyanobacteria can be an issue. And we all know, you got cyanobacteria. Okay, what's the root? Is it too clean? Is it too dirty? Are your nitrates elevated? Do you have silicates? Is your phosphates high? I always try to go back to the root cause. So some people will use it anyways because that helps solve it. And, even in this big reef right now, nitrates were pushing up towards 25. There was a little bit of cyanobacteria. And the guy said, maybe we should treat the tank. I said, no. Start changing the water. Yeah. That's the better solution. And get nitrates back to 10 or under 15. Mm-hmm. And they're in process of doing that right now. They just did the second change this week. So we do 165 Monday. We did 165 today. Yeah. And then we'll do it on Friday until we get nitrates down. So we won't do it all. I just want to do 500 gallons, do 25%. We'll do under 10%, 10%, 10% kind of thing. So Chemi-clean works in fresh or salt. We also sell it, and people are using it for certain ailments associated with chalice corals or on zoanthids. Believe it or not, there's a few guys, several people that actually use it as a dip on zoanthids. Wow. And it seems to have an effect on the bacteriological issues that might affect those things, including chalice corals. I think Chris Meckley was one of the first guys that really hit it up hard with the chalice corals. What I advise people with the Chemi-clean is to just take the cup off the skimmer, put a Ziploc bag over the thing, let it keep running, but let that foam go back in the aquarium, because you don't want to drop DO. You want to keep aeration going. And, it isn't really dropping pH, but dissolved oxygen could suffocate the fish and wipe them out. I've used it. This is a great story. Roger Ritzow from All Glass Aquarium had that purple spongy stuff that grows on your reef over time. It's like it looked like an algae, but it's purple. Lots of it everywhere. And I figured, we'll try Chemi-clean. I used it up to 10 times dosage in his tank with live clams in there. It was the most fascinating thing, and everything lived. Nothing happened. Nice. And believe it or not, that purple invasive sponge disappeared. Now, here comes the attack dog. You hear the attack dog in the background? Yeah, he's going for a walk.
It's not bad.
There you go. That's
a long time ago, I remember, this was probably before you bought that company, I had sent an email and just said, hey, I've got this really stubborn cyano. I'm thinking about using it. I think I asked if I use it. I don't think it was double strength. I think I was going higher, like triple strength, quadruple. I was just like, if I use it too strong, would it kill my tank? And I didn't get an answer, and my cyano was a big thing. And I waited maybe like a week. I was like, you know what? I'm going to find out.
Right.
I just made it, and I put it in, and it all unalived.
Yep.
That's my son calls it, unalived. And it went away. I was like, okay, so I know I can use this stronger than what's recommended on the bottle, and I don't have to freak out that I'm going to kill everything I own. So
yeah. None of us want to kill stuff. So in the office, when we have a test aquarium, I have a 60-gallon Reef in my office that's been around for years. And if we need to test anything, I test it in my office privately, because it's 60 gallons. I had the same fish for years, and it's got, believe it or not, fire coral that grew out of the KP Aquatics live rock down in the Keys. It's covered with fire coral, green star polyp, mushrooms, zoanthids, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to kill that. But if we have anything to test, we test it there first.
Yeah.
Because I see it, and we know if we kill something. Yeah. You don't want to put it in here.
What does the filtration look like on that 60-gallon? I mean, that's not your normal build.
No, I built that way back when I built one for Piscine Energetic and us for Global Pet Expo about 11 years ago. A couple tanks. He had seahorses. I had a little tank I built 2 mirrored systems. And it has a Deltec protein skimmer on there. It has a refugium with a light that runs 24/7. It has a quad head doser for calcium, alkalinity, magnesium, and then trace elements. It has an MP40 on it and an Eheim pump and a 15-watt UV. That's it. Mm-hmm. No temperature control other than ambient, and it's open top with a XR15 Pro above it.
And Chemi-pure somewhere in there?
Yeah, one Chemi-pure, 60 gallons, that's it. So every aquarium in the facility has a Chemi-pure. The aquaculture systems in the back, they're 400 gallons. I typically put only one Chemi-pure Blue Grande in the sump downstairs. It's a kind of a racetrack sump, so the water goes around and then picks up over here. So I'll put it below where the floss tray is. Yeah. And then, again, it's not an emergency to change it, but when you might think that you're seeing some tinge of water changing a little yellow or something, then you're changing it. And then even with bigger aquariums, we'll advise people. So if you have 6 Chemi-pure Blues on your big reef aquarium, you want to change 3 of them out. Don't change 6 of them out. Change 3. Then wait a month and then change the other 3.
Okay.
And I think good things happen slower than fast.
Yeah.
So if you get used to that, and then you put in your log, and then you follow the process again or again and again. So that's really the backscatter on Chemi-Clean. It works super well on fresh water. We've talked about changing the label for, there's some green cyanos that grow and kind of browny, reddish cyanos that grow in fresh water too. Works like magic there. And then VitaChem, of course, is the other Chemi-pure product. That has been around forever. We sell tons of gallons of that to the public aquarium sector, interestingly enough. And a lot of times people use it to soak their food in to feed to the fish. The breakout of the materials inside there are on the label. Again, that's proprietary. And I can remember years ago at Dick Boyd's place when I was next door in 1989, 1990, there was a guy that was a bodybuilder who would come over and buy some and actually was drinking the VitaChem as a vitamin supplement. I remember that. It's all food grade stuff.
Yeah.
I wouldn't advise that,
right.
But there was a guy that did it, and he still had all of his hair. I keep losing mine, but it's not from the VitaChem.
I like that you said he still has all his hair, because I was going to ask, were his scales good looking? Did he get some color?
No, he was a big dude, man. I remember Dick saying, yeah, the guy just buys it and uses it. So that's a great product. It goes into distribution. So basically all Chemi-pure is sold into distribution worldwide. We ship this week Singapore. We ship South Africa. I know we have an order going into England right now. We shipped South America, I know. And then I swear, I think we just shipped some to Turkey again, and Greece as well. Yeah, Beluga in Greece buys it too. So yeah, it goes all over the world. We haven't shipped Israel for a while. I think there's an issue going on over there right now. But Israel's been buying Chemi-pure for years and years and years. Like I'm talking, I look at the records and I got people that are international buyers for 40 years, which is fascinating. Yeah. So it's well known there, but it's in a different language on the label. It does say Chemi-pure. Go ahead.
I want to circle back to Chemi-pure because there is something. I mean, we all understand carbon. We all understand GFO on a basic level.
Yep.
I feel like the use of resins as a filter media, most of us only are familiar with that at the end of our RO system. It's like the final polishing step. And right. I feel like this might be a little bit unique to be using resins as a form of chemical filtration in a marine aquarium. And then I know you use different resins in the different formulations that you've come up with. And so there's multiple questions in there, but I want you to explain a little bit in more detail about that resin and what makes it unique and what it does that maybe these other things aren't doing.
I really think, that when Dick did this eons ago, it wasn't an accident. And truly, what the resins do is help to supercharge the reaction with the carbon. How that exactly plays out, we might have to ask Randy Holmes Farley or somebody of that nature, who might not even be a proponent of it, by the way. But still, you got to think to yourself, what does it really do? It's already being utilized in pure water treatment historically, and has been for eons even in your drinking water. And that part of it, to me, NSF safe, EPA acceptable, is really important. So if we can use it in our drinking water, certainly we can use it for our aquarium water. What it actually does, some of the resins that are available, there's a dozen different types that absorb phosphates, or dozens of them. They're really significant in the amount of phosphate that they can bind versus GFO. GFO is ferric, iron oxide, right? And most of that is mined in Germany, Europe, coming from Lanxess in Germany. And, we get that obviously in super sac sizes for the Chemi-pure Elite. So I have as much, GFO as I ever wanted to use. But the resins are different. They just react differently. And I'll get a totally different reaction. So if I just put carbon on this aquarium, I might clear it up. But if I put the Chemi-pure blue on there, it'll go gin clear. And I think what I really found out, even with the cichlid guys, when they were using the Chemi-pure blue to begin with, we never tried it on a cichlid aquarium. And some guys started using it. They're like, wow, just look at my aquarium went white, man. It is clean. And that, again, is just a testament to, the success of what it does. Now, would I say to you, let's just take the resin components. There's 2 different resin components in blue and put those in by themselves. And the answer is probably not. We're selling a product that's, again, has a great reputation, that's been utilized for many, many years, and successfully all over the world, and especially here in North America. So, what's working, you don't mess with it. So I made another product, and this product just has done tremendous. And it really, if I could say something negative about it, I would, but I can't. And
there are resins out there that you can recharge. For example,
correct.
One brand has a resin you can use in a reactor to remove nitrate, and I think you put it in salt brine water to recharge it, to use it again and again and again.
Correct. And or you could bake it in the oven.
I was going to say bake, but I thought that was wrong.
No, it's true. There's some resins you can heat up, and they'll release the whatever they got bound in the resins.
Yeah.
So I think that the convenience of what Chemi-pure provides is that easier solution.
Sure.
Less work. From a hobbyist who's getting really ingrained into it. Okay, great. They're going to really go down to maybe a molecular level, and they've got this higher intelligence, and they're going to go down this road.
Yeah.
But I'm going to say 80% of the consumers aren't like that. They want to do something easy, efficient, that works.
Right.
And again, that's why I bought the company. I mean, the damn product has worked forever. And I guarantee you, Dick Boyd did not roll over in his grave when I developed this product. As a matter of fact, he was probably smiling.
So what's
he said,
the
wow,
difference?
That's a good move, Jeff.
I want to get specific. What's the difference between the blue and the green?
Yeah.
And you mentioned specifically that the green is for planted aquariums.
Correct.
And so that tells me that you're targeting different things potentially.
Correct. Yeah. So the GH in a freshwater planted aquarium, right? The general hardness. What we found when we were testing through that was that the resins that we were using weren't affecting the GH in any significant way, because that certainly affecting the hardness would not be what we really want to do. So those resins, when we started toying around with that with planted aquariums, what we were looking for was a resin that helped with absorption but wasn't going to really hit the general hardness. And likewise, there's no phosphate absorbent in the green. So like
if I was going to do a marine planted aquarium, like an it would be okay to use the green in that scenario.
Yeah, it absolutely would be. Just kind of like, ChemiClean could be used in freshwater too. You could use it. I have not tested that personally. Like, let's say we're going to grow Thalassia, or we were going to grow, some other type of grass from,
sure.
I don't know, maybe we're going to grow Cato, but Cato is a different product. Let's grow Gracilaria or something else. Mm-hmm. Those items are already pulling phosphates out, right? Any plant is. So I think
is that really the main difference? The blue and the elites do have action on phosphate, whereas the green does not?
That's correct. Yeah, green does not have any phosphate absorbent resin whatsoever. You could put GFO in there, but again, we didn't toy with that because freshwater hobbyists are not really looking at phosphates, unless you guys might know more. I mean, Matt especially. I mean, are they really looking at phosphates?
No, I don't think we're. Yeah, I mean, like and the whole aquascaping and heavily planted aquarium is I feel, for me, it's one of my final frontiers. It's one of those things I have yet to master, and it's the freshwater reef tank. It's on its own level.
Well, it takes a lot of work. One of the better guys in the country with that would be Jeff Sensky, obviously. Mike Sensky's brother, who runs their facility there, and he has some beautiful aquariums at their property. Fascinating. But he's doing water changes, maybe 3 times a week. I don't know. But that's really kind of that art. That art is different.
Yeah. So much of the aquarium, right? The freshwater world, we can deal with water changes. There's not the expense and the effort involved versus a saltwater system of any type.
We've all seen lots of things that have come and gone through time. But again, Chemi-pure has been here since the advent of marine aquarium keeping, and it's not going anywhere. If I do anything next, I probably might expand into different aspects of the market. But I try my best not to, a lot of people have tried to come up with this formula or things like Chemi-pure. There's a few things out there. But again, a brand is a brand is a brand. Coca-Cola is still number one. I still think Pepsi-Cola is number two. So you got to stay on your game and keep doing the right thing. And when you guys come here, you'll see we do a very effective, efficient, honest job with the work that we do in building this product and selling this product and shipping this product around the world, and even to aquarium clubs. I mean, I'm still a big supporter of aquarium clubs. We get dozens of them annually that we ship product to, consumers with questions, consumer with issues. It's really interesting. Dick, years ago, I can remember him in his office. One of the key things Dick did, this was before the internet, he answered the phone. And, Joe had an issue, Mike had an issue. He knew everything about freshwater and saltwater aquariums. He just helped people. And they bought his product, and he did really well with it. Right. And here I am, so many years later, literally, from when he developed it before I was born. And it's a tremendous product. It really is.
And you're right about the brands, because my father, when I visit him, he will say, "What would you like to drink?" And so, and he'll be nice enough to buy me a bottle of Crown Royal. And I was like, Crown and Coke. And he goes, "Okay, go get your Coke from the garage." So I go to the garage and I open the fridge, and there's nothing in there. Pepsi. So I look on there. It's not just Pepsi, it's Diet Pepsi. Now, Crown and Diet Pepsi is horrific.
Horrible.
And my dad's like, "What's the difference?" I'm like, "The brand." It's like, it's completely a different thing, and it does not work at all. And I went and bought Coke just to have at his house with my Crown, so I can have a Crown and Coke.
Well, even when I go to Chemi-pure, so I go back to the Chemi-pure, and I think to myself, I could have bought carbon from Thailand, or I could have bought carbon from China and bought it for half the price and made a lot more money. But then what would I have done to the product? I would have bastardized the product, and that nobody wants to do that. Right. So I didn't. I went the opposite direction and bought something better that was cleaner, that made an improvement. So I it's all about improvement. And I think the same thing goes with anything filtration. We've all been around a long time, and we've learned a lot. And there's a lot of ways to skin a cat, but we all agree it should be dead. So when we look at a reef,
can you put that in the article, Matt?
That
one. I'll do that one. I'll do that one. Oh, that's horrible, but that's brilliant.
It's brilliant. I mean, think about it. We all would agree you're not going to flay a living cat. So we the same way with the reef aquarium. There's a lot of ways to do it. And Jobert had a valid thing, and I think it worked with this anoxic layer underneath it, but it wasn't really what we would do nowadays. Yeah. But it was a move, right? People have to explore options. So for me anymore, it's not about exploring options. It's about doing the right thing, and the right thing is not cheap. Yeah. Especially on a professional basis. So I replaced the Smithsonian's aquarium that, was done by Dr. 80 eons ago. That was now almost 15 years ago. My brother said to me, he says, "Oh, this is going to be a real benchmark in your career." I'm like, well, yeah, I guess it's just another aquarium, and I'm going to go do a damn good job. And when I went to the first meeting with Smithsonian, and I met with the design and production people and the people from Smithsonian, a committee, I was the only guy that they interviewed that said, well, so they asked me a question. I said, well, we have to look at the next 25 years. And they looked at me and I thought, huh? I said, yeah, I'm looking at 25 years. I'm building this aquarium to stay here for 25 years. Right. And here it is 15 years later, and it's still growing and thriving. Yeah. They're looking to take it down to buff the glass. They got some scratches and stuff. Sure. Then it gets to go into some form of government, and then everybody has to worry about the animals. And then it becomes this big, veterinarian thing and all the animals and care for the animals. We can't kill anything. And I agree with that. However, some of it could be very restrictive.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, if I had to take down a 15-year running reef tank, we're just going to strategize, empty, and roll, and we're going to go right in and do it. Yeah, but in government, it's a lot more different.
Yeah.
But that type of philosophy is the same philosophy to answer Matt's question. So, what are the things that you do? It's always the same. Toby noticed it. Alex noticed it. I just do it. It's subconscious. I just roll and design, thinking about 10 years. So if the aquarium's working and growing and thriving, and the client has a 1,000-gallon aquarium, let's say 1,000-gallon reef on an annual basis, could be, really, it could be $100,000 product. It's going to cost $25,000 a year to care for it professionally. Yeah. So I better build a quality project, because in 10 years, it's now $250,000 in revenue. Yeah. So that's just a reality from a business perspective, right? I'm a business guy. I'm looking at it from a business perspective. So the clients, they're not leaving. They've just built this massive, beautiful home. They love the idea of an aquarium. They're gonna pay for it. Professional services, and that's really the other side of a filtration system. If we can document that, it's professional services. From an owner standpoint, they have to hire a professional team. Yeah, we certainly are not the cheapest. We don't advertise to be the cheapest, and we are absolutely unequivocally as good as anybody in North America in building a really kick-ass reef aquarium, jellyfish aquarium. We do a few freshwaters every year. I have some really nice cichlid aquariums. I have a discus aquarium in my office.
Nice.
That I don't take care of. How do you like that? I don't take care of it. The team does. But it's super cool. It's a discus with these beautiful blue and orange and red discus and stuff. Kind of cool. And live plants, of course. And, well, I'm going to say it, Chemi-pure green.
Yeah, I was going to say, you don't have to work on this tank because you got Chemi-pure in there.
No, you still have to work on them. That one I have an RO float switch on top, which is actually not RO. It's carbon filtered inbound water from City. Okay. And we do a water change there. We just drain the water down, and then it goes through the filter and fills up over a couple hours. So we don't even do a water change. It just automatically fills up. Mike taught me that from ADG. They're a big water change fanatics. They usually have a Culligan cylinder. They go to site, they'll do a water change on the spot like that. There's several guys that do that across the country. So yeah, that's that part. You want me to talk about jellyfish? Boy, oh boy, it could get long-winded.
Well, let me ask you this first. I do have a question for you here. Is there an aspect of filtration that you feel most aquarists overlook?
Effective protein skimming, I think, is probably one of the keystones to me of really having a great reef aquarium. That means that you're getting enough air interface with the water, meaning, what's the CFMs of air getting pulled in through the venturi, and however it's going through the needle wheel or whatever you're doing to create that bubble interface. That, I think, is very important, because, of course, those bubbles are attracting organic matter that's going to get pulled out of solution. They're oxygenating the water. And even like I was saying earlier about CO2 in the space, if you want to use a desiccant to pull CO2 out up front, that can be totally advisable as well. Do I get a coral mug after this whole interview? We both have coral mugs. I don't have a coral mug.
I'll just tell you real quick. You're not aware of this. This was a personal pet project of mine, because I told Matt I want a coral mug for my YouTube channel, and he said no. He said no.
I was just like, what do you...
No. He said no. And I said, I want a mug I can hold up. I take a sip, it says coral. And he said, we print magazines, we don't print mugs. And I'm just like,
I don't think that's what I thought.
This is ridiculous. So, I hang up the phone call, and I think about this, and I said, I really want this mug. And I thought, how am I going to make a mug? And then I said, all right, I can call mug companies, obviously. I can just do my own thing. I'll steal the logo. I'll make this happen. And then I said, what if I put my very first cover that I did of Coral Magazine here? And I put the logo here. And then I thought, all right, if I have the logo here, I want to put something around it so it's not boring. And that's when inspiration started hitting me, because then I started thinking, well, as I take a sip, they're going to see the bottom of the mug. Right. And on the back cover of every issue of Coral for the for all time is Tropic Marin.
Tropic, correct.
So I was just like, what if I could get Tropic Marin on the bottom of the mug? Because it's the bottom of the magazine. And so I told Matt my idea, and he burst out laughing. I was like, okay, now I know I'm winning this battle. So I went ahead and I called a couple mug companies. Like, can you print on the bottom of the mug? And everyone said, no, no, no. And then I got a hold of someone who had a brother, actually Michael Vargas, who does our some of our photography for the magazine. Michael. His brother just printing stuff. And he goes, I can print you a mug. I said, are your mugs like naked on the bottom? No made in China or whatever. No words that we have to cover up or etch off. And he goes, no, just a white mug. I'm like, perfect. So I came to Matt and I said, okay, Matt, I want this. I want this. And he said, well, maybe we can wrap some kind of coral around. And I was like, yeah, that would be good. And then I wanted all the initials of the people that work at Coral Magazine to be scattered around this, like a cloud of initials, like signing a birthday card. Everyone's got their initials.
Right. And
so Matt drew it, and it didn't look like what I wanted at all. He just kind of put them straight. It's like, no, it's like, you jotted your initials. You scatter them. It's like, ah. And he was like, I have 1,000 things to do. I don't have time for this. And I was like, all right, fine. So what we did here at the very bottom, it's really hard to see. We actually have a file name here at the bottom. And it actually said, I'll just read it to you. It says first issue -D3, which means it's been through editorial 3 times. It's ready for print. And then it says -ML, Marc Levenson, MP, Matt Pedersen, ST, AM, AX, AR, SS, MB, AL.PDF. So I was like, it's cool. It's one of our insane, ridiculous file names for when we're doing our editing process before it goes to print. And then I sent this to Michael's brother to print it out. And he said, okay, so I was about to hit print, but there's like this weird file name, so I'm deleting it. I'm like, no, that's so important. He thought somehow we put some. So anyway, I printed 12 of these, and I gave them to everyone on the staff. And now everyone wants one. And I'm like, well, that's a whole Matt Stefan argument now, because I think they're great. So thank you for asking. That's great.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I noticed both of you had it. And then I was saying that I have a Rising Tide mug that Judy St. Ledger gave me. I'm on the Rising Tide board for years. Mm-hmm. I have a QM mug that I got, I can't imagine how long ago. Both of them are in my coffee mug spot at the house.
Yes.
So if I get a Coral Mag one, I'll bring one in the office for a Zoom meeting or something and hold it up.
All right, we'll have to see what we can do for you.
It's funny, you both have them, so I noticed that.
Well, I gave one to him, and to be honest, this is our 4th interview. You're the only one that's mentioned it. We were like doing dueling banjos over here to see if we get a reaction, and there was, like this, and then he would
no.
And no one reacted.
No. So from a different level, so we got to think about this from a going back, kind of encompassing on filtration.
Yeah.
That's what I do. So I have a keen sense of spatial awareness. Mm-hmm. I'm really good with a spear gun or a weapon. And I'm, pretty damn good driving, even fast, boat or land. Hell, I could shoot something with a bow and arrow too. But spatial awareness is a really important aspect of filtration. So when I go to a new place and I look at what we got, I'm looking at the whole place, man.
Yeah.
And I get underneath an aquarium, and you should see, the tight work that Gio is doing, Buddy's doing, Steve, myself, we're doing some tight stuff, man. And it is tight to fit everything in that we're putting into a really significant reef. And the client, I had a guy 2 years ago in Fort Lauderdale, Brian Rich. He's like, I had the other company look, and you guys were like $20,000 more, but we came to your place. We really liked you guys, and we thought it would be the right way to go. Mm-hmm. And when we were done with it, he says, yeah, what you guys did is nothing like what I saw these other people do. Your system is rock solid.
Nice.
There to last for years. And that was a big compliment, because he's, a super wealthy guy, really nice, from Boston, straight shooter, just rolls in there, starts cussing at it and cussing with me at the same time. I'm like, oh my God, here we go. So I'm going down this road with him, talking about how we're going to do the right, what, and it's going to make a difference, and you're going to really, we're here to exceed your expectations. And it's just great. We get along really well from that level, because it is a solid system, but it's spatial awareness. I got into to cut a hole through his wall, through the concrete.
Sure.
And we had the fan out low, but the pickup up high.
Uh-huh.
And we're vacating air out of his house because we have to. We
Yes.
have to pull air. Fresh air exchange on an aquarium is far, not looked at. You need fresh air exchange in your space. And, we go down that road, talk about CO2 in your space, talk about temperature, talk about humidity.
And humidity. I mean, I have an HRV for a 6,000 square foot home on my fish room, which is only 625 square feet.
Yeah.
You know, like especially up here with the cold weather, condensation on wood and windows, that's not going to fly. No.
Right. So the dehumidifier above here, I have 3,000 plus gallons in our 3,000 square foot of offices. The warehouse is 24,000 total feet with the office. So I have a big dehumidifier on the reef tank above here.
Right.
And it goes on tonight at 6:30, 7 o'clock, and goes off tomorrow morning. And then weekends it runs full time.
Sure.
And you'll go to the humidistat in my office and you'll see it running around 50%, 49, 48, 55, somewhere in that range. But it's not, outside it might have been, 85% humidity today.
Yes.
So that's an important thing to recognize. We're pulling humidity out of the air, which is also making the aquariums evaporate more.
Yes.
So, these are all, logical things, but not necessarily to everybody, right?
No, you're right. And I think I got lucky on mine. I put a ventilation fan in my fish room to draw air out, and it's always on 24 hours a day. And I have a
24/7
tube that goes from it straight to the whirlybird in my roof. So it's when you stand behind my house, one whirlybird's really going because it's blowing in it. But when I open my back door, there's like a wind tunnel coming into my house. I think it's that vent fan drawing it in, because I don't know why else I'd have wind blowing in, because I have all good doors and good windows and all that. So I think it's that vent I did, which I just knew I wanted to get the humidity and the moisture out of that room right above the reef tank at where it all comes from.
Let me say another thing about filtration. So I'll try to say this the right way, so we can delete it if we don't need to, if we don't need it, or I say it the wrong way. So I get to do what I love to do with other people's money on a constant basis, building really intense and tremendous coral reef jellyfish aquariums and, enjoying the hell out of it all day long. Yeah. So that you might not get out of everybody you interview, because we build final products. Mm-hmm. We don't necessarily build them for somebody else to take away for their house. So a lot of what I'm doing is really kind of, for our team, for ourselves, just as much as it is for the client. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot that goes into that thought process when you really get down thinking about it. And in a situation where, it's the economics is not a massive concern, and we are charging for a really professional project, by God, we better freaking do it.
Yeah.
So that's a whole, it's a whole different philosophy. I think that most of the guys building filtration, they're going to build products, but we're going to take care of the final product. So even when I'm at a home, right, I have a builder and he's there and they're intense and they got their checklists at the end and all these things. Oh, damn it, we got to do this and we got to do that. There's 49 things on the checklist from the owner, and the other guy pulled up some more. I go, well, when you guys are done, we just get started.
Yeah.
I laugh. Yeah. And I'm like, our job just began. We're starting to put fish in because you guys have gotten rid of all the dust and all the crap in the house. Right. And now we're just getting started. And they look at me and they're like, well, I can't wait to get out of here. And I'm like, well, we just can't wait to start.
Yeah.
So, and then when you or I or one of us guys who know what a beautiful reef aquarium is, you go to the project a year later. Yeah. You go 2 years later. Like Geo today from Atlanta, it's running now 5 years. I think it'll be 6 years on March 30th. He said, knock on wood, but he says it looks stupendous today. And, we always kind of run that way because, calcium reactor fails, this fails, a chiller goes, an RO systems, something happens. There's always a little bit of something that can happen with such an extensive system like the one we did the story about last year in Atlanta. It's unbelievable. And, he's pinching himself because it's like, wow, just this is museum quality, top end stuff. Yeah. So it takes a team that has the same philosophy, and it's a lot of work, man. It ain't easy. Yeah, professionally, it's a lot of work.
And you don't want to set yourself up for extra headaches by going
No.
subpar in anywhere. Like
Right.
that's setting you up for success as the people
Well,
who are coming. So would it be that if you were to take your philosophy at RAD and how you
yeah,
treat a high-end client and try to apply that to the home aquarist or the person who's going to be doing it themselves because they do not have an infinite budget, would the lesson and the moral of the story be design it right the first time and don't and take the extra investment? Maybe you want the 200-gallon aquarium, but to get the best filtration and the best life support, you're
yeah.
going to have to go to a 150-gallon aquarium or a 100-gallon aquarium to hit your budget. How
Yeah, I would.
how would you interpret or apply
Well,
what you think
I could.
to what someone like me might have to do?
Well, I would think even going back to '96 when I first went to Germany for the Meerwasser Symposium in Dusseldorf, I can remember meeting, getting off the airplane, getting on a train, catching up with Jeff McAree. You guys remember him
Mm-hmm.
up in Dusseldorf and seeing Peter Findeisen's aquarium for the first time in '96. That's only, I guess that's what is that, 28 years ago. It was pretty fascinating. I mean, pretty much one of the only other Americans going over there was Julian. There was other people that certainly went over there. But what I found was that they were patient. They took their time. They did their research. They got the right equipment, and then they started their aquarium.
Mm-hmm.
We sometimes in America are, instantaneous. We want it now. And that's part of the issue, is really becoming patient and recognizing, sure, your budget's here, but what might you really need longer term? So maybe you instead of a 280 gallon, maybe you're going to, go down to 180 gallons. But if you want the 280, now you better really start strategizing long term. What other equipment do you need underneath? What other items do you need? It isn't about size. It's about quality and strength, robust filtration. Then you got to think about an RO system. Then you got to think about DI. There's a lot of moving parts.
Yeah.
So from an advice standpoint, really hunker down. You got to think about how many years you're going to live in the house, right? Yeah. There's a lot of things to think about. You're going to build a 1,000-gallon reef tank in your house. I'm only going to be here for 2 years. Now that's a joke.
Yeah.
Don't do it. I'm going to tell you, don't do it. I tell people not to do things who come to us. People want to buy a shark tank from us, and I have flat out refused. Flat out. You sure we could keep a shark, but I don't think it's really a public-private aquarium standpoint. Those are the best places to put them.
Yeah.
And those are the people that are more successful. There's a client down here that's just building a 1,500-gallon that one of the guys is doing, and he wants black-tip sharks or white-tip sharks, and it's got curved ends. It's glass. It's 12 feet or so long, and 6 feet wide and 42 tall. Mm-hmm. I'm like, God, I don't know that I want to be a shark in that aquarium.
Yeah.
And I just went diving with white sharks with Jolene in the Neptune Islands in Australia. Mm-hmm. They're big son of a bitches, man. And they get big, just like a white-tip shark or a black-tip shark. So, things like that I try to shy away from. Now, if you want a 225,000-gallon reef aquarium and have a reef shark in there legally, we might consider that. But I certainly would hope you had a few $1 million ready to roll out of your pocket. But that's what I might do for a shark tank.
I take away from what you were saying before, really, you are suggesting they think long-term, they think ahead what they're trying to accomplish. Like, for example, when I was setting up my 400-gallon, I was dreaming up what it would be. I didn't even know what size it would be yet. I just, my tank was leaking. I had to make a decision. And Marine Land said, or you could, because they said, we can send you a 300 on Monday. Like, it's on the truck. It's Friday. And Monday we'll ship you a tank. Or you could go custom. And then I was like, custom? Oh.
Right.
So I'm there with a piece of paper, like you talked about sketches, and I had a ruler and a pencil, and it's graph paper, so I can see the squares. And I'm drawing my little dream tank and how I think my flow would go. But as I was doing it, my thought was, I am building my 10-year dream tank. That's how I looked at it. And I designed that in 2010. I started in February 2011. Here we are, 2024. So I've already gone beyond 10 years, and I'm still going. Thank goodness,
With the same aquarium.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we go
essentially,
into
I mean, not exactly, but yeah, close.
Yeah.
The tank is over 10 years old. There was a failure of the first tank, and they had to rebuild, and it took them forever. And they finally sent me a new one, and that tank is now over 10 years old.
Well, even in tank building 101, so this one is in an aluminum powder coated frame, top and bottom. And I'm going to show you something. Let me see if I can figure out how to do this.
Do you want me to make the square bigger? Hang on, let me do this.
Let's.
Take me out of it.
Okay, so if I go here, I'm going to show you something really cool. So we pull this frame off, right?
Okay.
So that's the frame.
Yeah.
That is on the corner edge.
Mm-hmm.
This is 1-inch laminate glass with a glass strip on the outside, and on the inside is a 45.
Yeah.
So there's a glued in
a lot of barriers.
Silicone 45 in there.
Smart.
And that is essential because long term, you can cut into that. Right. You could cut into that with a scraper blade or a razor knife, and I've seen worms bore through silicone and create leaks. Yeah, and that is again one of these scary things, right? You got 2,000 gallon, it's leaking in somebody's house, with $1 million worth of furnishings. You don't want that. Jellyfish filtration. When I first built the Stake 954, the 2,000 gallon over here 13 years ago in Fort Lauderdale, the interesting thing was I had never built a jellyfish aquarium in my life, not one. And it was a $250,000 project. And I looked at it and thought to myself, I could build a jellyfish aquarium. I've seen a lot of them. Nothing's really outrageously crazy. I had a lot of people say a lot of different things. And I thought to myself, I'm going to make it faster. I'm going to make it more of a robust system. Same thing. I got a big poly sump down there. I've got a real protein skimmer. Oh, you can't use the protein skimmer. The bubbles, they'll kill the jellyfish. Well, by God, I'm going to pull organics out. And, I need a protein skimmer. So I'm going to do it. And I did it. I even had somebody tell me, you can't use GFO. You can't use carbon. That'll kill the jellyfish. I'm like, how is it killing the jellyfish if I'm not putting it into solution, meaning fine particulate matter in there that it's going to get into their bodies and maybe they can't absorb it. So it's a great story. I put that 2,000 gallon together, it was up and running. I killed the first couple of sets of jellyfish because the baffle walls weren't exact for the way the flow was coming down. So we modified that, and then lo and behold, I had them running. And literally within the first month, I had phosphates at 2.0, and algae was growing all over the place. And I thought to myself, okay, time for the GFO. Let's see if it works. And I put GFO. This is a great story. In 2,000 gallons of water in a fluidized reactor, right? A Deltec reactor with floss on one side so it isn't purging out, and a gas bag at the end, right? A gas bag at the end. You're not pushing anything through into solution. So literally, in 2 days, it went from a phosphate level of 2.0 to 0, the absolute 0.
Oh, you filter like I filter.
Yeah.
I want to solve things now. I don't want the gradual solution.
Well,
I'm so bad about that.
It was jellyfish. And then, I'm growing algae. It's a restaurant. I can't have algae on there. Now I got to go back 5 days a week and clean the algae. So what I learned was that they don't need phosphates. They like a stabilized alkalinity. But you have to feed the son of a bitches. They're on the ocean. They're a big piece of plankton. They're eating all the time. If you go in the ocean and you see a jellyfish swimming along, especially a Aurelia aurita, a moon jellyfish, on the beach on the East Coast or somewhere, it's a big purple thing and it's filled with food. So they're always eating. So I thought to myself, well, shit, I'm going to automate. Did I say the S word again?
You did.
I'm going to automate the food, right? So I started automating feeds, basic stuff. You eliminate the human, make it constant. So I basically automated live brine feeds. We rinse the live brine. I was even told live brine doesn't work because it doesn't have any nutritive value. Well, I've disproved that for years now. And we would go and meter it in with a parasitic pump, right? And it would meter in through the silicone and get into the tank. And then that feeder goes off for 2 minutes. And then I had an RO with a check valve come in and push water to clean the line out so the bacteria didn't grow. Yeah. And that was a real brilliant aha moment that, hey, I've cleaned the feed line. Yeah. It's not growing bacteria, though eventually you got to clean the feed lines anyways, but I can get a year without cleaning the feed lines.
That's good.
And, I think algal turf scrubbing of any sort or any Chaeto is good. Certainly stay away from coralline algae, stay away from live rock, stay away from anything calcium growing coralline algae, because it will grow in a jellyfish tank. And then eventually you're going to have to figure out what you're going to do with this coralline that's now growing all over. So you may have to empty the tank and start all over again. So Chemi-pure blue, we always use. If I get too much of a phosphate situation, I can use GFO. A UV sterilizer really helps to keep the water clean. Okay. Temperature control is very wonderful to have. All the big ones have chillers on them. The one in the lobby right now that's doing super well is 400 gallons of actual water in the aquarium, and it's on ambient temperature in the room that's 74 degrees. So this aquarium is running 78. So it will run at 78. We find 68 is fantastic with the big ones, and I can get them growing 12 inches in diameter. The W right now has 12-inch jellyfish there. And, they're in the ocean. They're really cyclical. They're going to last a year. I can keep them in a healthy environment as a jellyfish aquarium for maybe 2.5 years, 2.25 years. They'll get really big. And then the fascinating thing with jellyfish, they get really big like that, they eventually just start to shrink. And then people even at the restaurant, they're like, oh, those babies. I'm thinking, no, those are the old guys. I said, yes, they're reproducing.
Yeah. Right.
And you sometimes just let it roll. But you can expect them to live a year and a half. You got to feed them. You got to keep nitrates down. They can take up to 50 ppm of nitrates. I've seen them up to 100 ppm of nitrates, but you don't really want that.
Yeah.
You want to kind of max out at 25 or 30 and then start doing water changes.
The pink ones that are in the Florida waters, what kind of jellies are those?
They're actually purple pink. Those are Aurelia rita. That is a moon jelly. That's the ones that we grow. Okay. Around the world, there's 200 different species minimum of Aurelia rita around the world. Wow. Alex just went to the public aquarium in Japan that has the #1 collection of jellyfish in the world. I think they had 26 different species under production at one time. He was fascinated there too. But again, spineless and brainless, man. How hard can they be?
Yeah. How hard? You didn't mention the wet dry filter.
You can put a wet dry if you want on there, but you're going to produce some more nitrates, so you might change some more water. Yeah. Those are normal things. But I think we as aquarists and us from a filtration level, think like the fish. Think what the fish need. Think where the fish came from, or the coral, or the animal. If you got a lot of hair algae in the aquarium, and you weren't used to, years ago we'd get those algae blooms or hair algae blooms and stuff. You think, what's going on? Well, you are the tank, man. Scrub the rocks, dude. Yeah. Get it out of there.
Get to work.
Right. But you got to think like the fish. That's where I get, you guys know I go boating and fishing and diving. And, I love that. It's just fascinating getting in the natural open ocean environment. Yeah. We dove the Coral Sea right now, Jolene and I. We did 4 nights on the Spoil Sport out of Cairns. We went to Cairns Marine while we were there. That was fascinating. But man, diving off there, everything was alive. It was thriving. It was growing coral everywhere.
Nice.
And same kind of thing, like you always do when you go anywhere. Especially when you go into water, you're learning. I mean, Here I am. I'm a few years older than you guys, and I was underwater and just was fascinating the dives. Yeah. I think I sent you a link to that too. You should watch that little nighttime video. It's about 19 minutes, but what an adventure to go to Australia. You guys have been to Australia?
No.
Not yet.
I would highly recommend it.
How far does your boat go? Maybe I could just swing by and grab Australia. That and head to Australia. Just stop somewhere, get gas, and keep going.
No, we go 100 miles over to the Bahamas and have a great time. But those kinds of things, I think, even us guys, knowing each other for years, those kinds of things we miss sometimes. And, I welcome, anybody who wants to try to give me an excuse to have to go on the boats or Jolene's boat, we call that. Yeah. I have Roger DeGregory and Darren from DFW coming down at the end of May into June. They're going over with us for a few days. So I take different people out. So if you guys ever come down, try to do it when it's warm. Winter's good for you guys, of course, because you get out of the snow.
Well, you said it's 82. How much warmer do you want it to be?
Well, really. it's good. I usually try to avoid the boat January, February, March, just to really get tuned up for the year again.
Sure.
Do Global Pet Expo. I recently joined Fish Guy Peer Group, which is a group of us around the country who all are aquarium professionals with aquarium services business and customs. So they're coming down the last week of March, and then I'll be back at it again in April using the boat. But it's you got to kind of time things.
Yes,
we're busy. I got to tell you another really fascinating thing with filtration and all these projects we have. You never know where they're going to get finished.
Yeah,
you get a project, you think the house is under construction for a year, it now gets to 2, it gets to 2.5, and wow, it could be 4 years on these massive projects. So there is no, let's get it done. We got to get it over with. It's like, okay, we're the last thing to finish. We really are. When you're putting food in your refrigerator, the fish should be going into the aquarium. That's a great rule of thumb.
Oh, okay.
So let me think what else I can tell you. I don't know. I mean, things are good. I still to this second enjoy all aspects of what we do. And again, helping to craft out and train and bring together the best team in the industry is really our goal with these really massively significant projects that we have down here. I'm still, excited as a kid as to, what we can build, how we can build something so successful.
Yeah. And
then to see it, and I may not even go there for 6-8 months and come back and like, wow, man, this aquarium is doing fabulous.
Right.
That's a really rewarding thing beyond money.
Yeah.
It isn't all about the money. It's about also the success and the fortitude and the honesty and the integrity of the organization as a whole.
Correct.
We are here, and I explain to the guys, we're here to do the right thing on behalf of the client with their money. So let's do a good job with that. Let's not sell them tile fish if it doesn't have a deep enough sand bed. I mean, things like that. Somebody else might think, oh, it's okay, Jeff, you're making money. Well, no, that's not right. We want to grow and keep things alive and run a responsible hobby. Where obviously, as you guys know, I'm a big proponent of aquaculture at anything.
Yeah.
We're never going to replace all the fish that come from the wild. That's a fact. But by God, we've done a great job with clowns and pseudochromis. And I just bought a dozen yellow tangs from Biota the other day. We're growing them in the back. I mean, I'm supporting aquaculture, always have been. Yeah. I buy a lot of bigger corals, sometimes from TSA. Top Shelf has done a great job up there. Worldwide's done a great job. I mean, there's some really great players in our industry. QM, A&M Aquatics, I go down the list. Dynasty down in the Keys. Yeah. I mean, there's some really responsible, great people in the industry. So those are things that, I like to point out that I think make a big difference in your business. It's not about buying a cheap fish because it's cheap. It's about buying healthy fish and going down this road of sustainable fisheries, responsible fisheries, licensed fisheries, and coral, man, fabulous. Wow. I can't say enough about how great, growing a thriving coral reef aquarium is anymore. You have yours, Matt, too, at home? Your reef tank?
Right now, I don't. Right now,
see, I knew I'd spot him on something.
No, I know.
The magazine's taking a lot of time, right? The magazine takes
everything. I have some aquariums running, but I do not have a reef tank at the moment. Right. And I've been thinking about once things are settled, probably revisiting a few breeding projects that I feel like really need attention. Right. Yeah, I mean the story of the last reef tank. I think people know that I had that vase reef going for a number of years. That real tiny, just change all the water 100% every week, and the Poecilopora are bailing out babies left and right. I mean, like that was amazing to see in a 1 gallon environment. The opposite of what's behind you. And when that got cooked with the heater failure, and it was a redundant failure. It was the heater. I was using a temperature controller to control the heater. That failed, and the thermostat on the heater was the backup that should have turned everything off Well, that never
Right.
turned everything off, and it was 100 degrees,
Oh,
and
Wow.
it sat there for a while.
it's too
And
big.
well, it was the smallest heater I could get.
Yeah.
And here, when you're going to open the front door and it's negative 30,
Yeah.
and all that
Yeah.
air comes rushing in, uh,
That's true.
doing it at room temperature was not really an option. So,
Wow.
and I rebooted.
Go ahead.
Well, so I rebooted it in April of last year, and it was just starting to get going. And then James passed away, and obviously things got very busy very quick because I had to jump in and do his job in addition to my own. And
Right.
at some point, I think, with my children being older, they have more responsibilities, but they're not at the point where they can get themselves to places. And I remember we were going somewhere, I think for like a weekend tournament or something. And I looked at the reef and I saw a little bit of one of the corals had a little bit of RTN on it. And I was walking out the door and I said, I don't have time to deal with this. And when I got back, everything was white. And I was like,
Right.
okay, I'm not gonna worry about this right now.
Yeah,
Too
you drain
small.
it down.
Yep.
So Geo, I'm going to show you this because you guys will be able to see this. So Geo today, this is the 6,000. Let me see if I can get that. That's the 6,000
Mm-hmm.
in Atlanta
Oh,
today.
it really has filled in.
Yeah, it's stunning. But that's literally this morning.
Mm-hmm.
So and that's from last year. So I haven't been back there for a year.
Yeah.
So I only get to see these from
Virtually.
from the videos.
Right. Right.
And he's just like, yeah, man, it looks so stunning.
Yeah.
But you got to have a willing owner. It isn't like everybody could just do this. I mean, it's unbelievable. Yeah. So you guys got to come down. I can't tell you when, but you guys, we got to think about how to do that and drag you through because it's well worth the move. By the end of February, I'll get more in the can, and then I'll start making some more kind of type videos, I'll call them, about the products that we produce on a professional basis for architects, builders, designers.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just fascinating.
Yeah. Sounds great.
And I threatened to stop selling tanks.
Did you?
Yeah. So my son and Joey's been doing really well. When we get people coming in, we get them in the office now that we have the office and the warehouse, and they look through and they're like, wow, you guys are a real company. We're going to go with you. But, every one that I sell, is another segment of my life that it takes out to go build it.
It's true.
So, I'm 62. Do I want to do that at 75? And the answer is probably not. Yeah. So I keep telling them by the time I'm 65, I want to pull out of that much unless you have a really significant project that you really have to have me in. Mm-hmm. And we'll do that. But they keep growing and the guys keep doing really, really, really well. Yeah. So exciting news.
So is the you think long term? I'm gonna
always
leave my last question. Is the plan for the Turner family to continue rad for someone like Joey to at some point?
Oh yeah. Joey is doing that now and will continue to do that for as long as possible. I think he gets married here coming up in mid-March. And, he's having a good time too. And I really recognize that that's an important factor. We all, within the whole organization, you have to earn a living, make a good living and recognize that it's not just about, selling, more product with more money. That's not necessarily the gig. It's right. More related to the long-term philosophy of, let's say we have, almost 60 different aquariums now, 50 different accounts. When we have 100, then what are we going to do? Yeah. Right. And I'm talking, they're all going to be the same high caliber. So now what do you got? You got a lot of people, a lot of animals to take care of, and they got to be done right. Yeah. So really centrically, we're focusing on between Jupiter, Ocean Reef, Naples. So anywhere in between this southern triangle, because then we can care for it. When we build a big one, like we have in Atlanta, that's a flight away, not that bad. But if I had 3 dozen of them across the country, that would be very complicated, very complicated. Yeah. So Joey's going to keep doing this whole thing. I can see pretty much as long as he feels like he wants to do it. But he really is, my long-term contingency plan. He's not getting out of it. If anything, he's now drafting all the projects. He's actually drawing all of it. in SolidWorks. So now he's actually getting intimately involved in the mechanics, right?
Yeah, good.
Until you start drafting it and you get everything fitting,
yeah,
then you don't know what you don't know until you draft it. So if it doesn't fit, well, obviously you drafted it. It's definitely your problem to fix.
Yeah.
So that's how you get in, by fire, I guess you get involved into not making mistakes. He can build the glass tanks all by himself.
It's all about logistical control, just figuring out what can go wrong, how to avert it, how to stay ahead of it, or how to eliminate it,
Right. Yeah, this one we put in place with the forklift, on a table and lifted the whole table up, and it took 8 of us to slide it off onto the stand.
Yeah.
9 of us. It's heavy.
It's crazy.
It's freaking heavy, man. Yeah. And I fly them in with cranes. I mean, I have one right now that's another one in Atlanta. I can't even say what, it's a big, tall cylinder, but we're going to fly that one in with a crane, and that's always fun, man. That thing's flying over the sky. You're like, oh, my God, I hope it doesn't fall because I'm not getting paid.
We always think that. We always think, I hope it doesn't fall.
Right.
Do you still have the jellyfish tank that was like 2 stories? It like went through the floor?
Yes.
Is that in your building, or is that a client?
No, that's a client. Again, I signed an NDA just to walk in the door. It's stunning. It's stunning. I think I told you about it, but I never sent you a video because I can't send videos out of it.
No, you only showed, I think your son was inside cleaning or doing something or arranging
I probably showed it to you. Right. Yeah. I showed you the video. The client actually has said through their agents that they're going to allow us to photograph.
Oh, nice.
So that means, yes, we can photograph. Yeah. Can we put a drone outside the building and show it through the glass windows? Can we, things like that. So we'll have to sign off on it. They'll have to approve whatever we do.
Right.
But once I get it, it's stunning, man. It's 2 stories. It's incredible. We dive that with a rebreather once a month.
Yeah. I've only had one giant build, and it was a 2,000 gallon, and I had to sign an NDA, and I signed the contract for a 6 or 7 month duration for this build, which took 2.5 years. And so, and at the end, it was not the end, it's never done. But at the point where we could have started working on getting the filtration installed and get all that done, things fell apart. But he was telling me at this point, you can share the pictures now. And I was like, you told me in writing, don't you dare put anything out there. And I was like, until you put something in writing saying I can, I'm not releasing nothing.
No.
Jeff, thank you so much for coming on. Matt, thanks so much for helping with the interview style, because you always know which questions to ask. And I really thought this was interesting because you're dealing basically with high-end clientele.
Yeah.
And that's a whole other approach to when it comes to designing long-term filtration that will give you a successful exhibit.
Yes. It's a cross between an art and a science, and involves biology, chemistry, plumbing, electric, physics. It's everything. I mean, we are in the aquarium industry on a professional basis. Yeah. You got to understand a lot of different things to really do a great job and continue moving forward, building, only so many really high quality caliber projects on an annual basis. Something you can't just triple this year. You have to really be engaged and involved and understand what the long game is on this aquarium, for sure.
Yeah, super interesting.
And we love Coral Magazine. I mean, I've been watching Coral Magazine and reading it. Can't wait for it to come in. I even have the latest issue in front of me. Look, the latest issue is here.
Waiting 4 hours for you to do the plug, Jeff.
We didn't think you'd ever mention we had to keep lifting our mug just to get it on camera.
Oh, Coral has been great. And I was a really